And we're live. Welcome to Don't Be Coy. I'm your host, Uncle Lew. And today I have the honor, pleasure, and the utmost appreciation to have with me today Mr. Vinay Thakorlal. Vinay, thank you for being on the show. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, thanks so much. Doing good. It's a bright, sunny day here in Hawaii, where I've recently moved to. So no complaints, and just excited to get to talk to you. It's been a little while, and yeah, just really looking forward to catching up and talking about this next chapter together.
All right, sounds good, man. So how was your previous week?
Previous week was good. I was, in Seattle about 2 weeks ago, and have, recently got into real estate investing. And while it sounds like a great opportunity, and it is, it's also a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, I was just kind of juggling a lot of work and getting our house ready for our new tenants as a landlord, which sounds kind of crazy because I never thought I would ever be a landlord. So this last week was good, just recovering, getting back into the normal routine of things. And then, yeah, just trying to enjoy some beachy weather and some good food along the way too.
No, that sounds great, man. So for the people at home, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'll take it to the beginning here. So I was actually born in Tennessee, and I moved to Seattle when I was about 10, and I've been there for pretty much the last, about 20 to 21 years. And it's been a great place. That's, where I was essentially raised, and it is home for me, and the most familiar. And recently I've gotten married back in March, which is pretty awesome. And my wife had this really, really cool opportunity that landed in her lap to take a job in Hawaii. And so, her and I had talked pretty extensively about it, and see if it made sense to make that move. And we did want to try it out, have a new experience, especially together. And so we decided to move to Hawaii last December. And so it's been amazing so far to just be in a new place. It's been a new experience for me too, just like I said, from growing up in Seattle and really just only knowing that place to be home, and to now call another place home. It's been a pretty wild ride, but also really fun and just great for the experience. So just really happy that I can make this experience part of my timeline of life. And then yeah, just like on more of a personal side too, and talking about my roots and background. So I am a first generation American here with South Asian Indian roots. My parents met on, it feels like, opposite sides of the earth. So my dad was born in Fiji and my mom was born in South Africa. And somehow, like I said, they came together, and I was born in Tennessee. So, feel like I'm a child of the world for sure.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, and that sounds great too. For especially like hearing as you were giving briefly your parents' story about just growing up in different parts of the world, and like coming together, and then like for you yourself to be born in Tennessee, but then raised in like Seattle. It's kind of interesting, man, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, as far as just like a lot of these kind of like transformations and like recent changes that you've been having going on in your life, and like how you've not only been able to like navigate it and manage it, but like also how you've been kind of present in those moments, and like have some time of reflection to talk a little bit about just events that you had. Because literally three things that you just mentioned was like you recently got into real estate, which is, especially for like I would say like our generation, or like people that are in our like early 30s and things of that nature. That's something that a lot of people aspire to do or just getting into. And then recently getting married, and that's a big pivotal moment in itself. And then recently moving to Hawaii and like having to not necessarily like uproot yourself and move, but like you're like you said, you have a new place that you call home. It's not like you're visiting Hawaii for um 4 or 5 years because of school or because you have some type of fellowship program that you're doing. Like
Right.
this is new.
Right.
And so like I'm interested to hear like your perspective of like having a lot of these recent changes coming into your life and like how that impact has been to you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, more than happy to share. It's been a journey and it continues to be one. And I always think everything can always look different. Like a year from now can look completely different than how it does today. And just really trying to be open to that mindset, it introduces a lot of opportunities. So yeah, I'm more than happy to kind of start talking about that and dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So like let's kind of start with your experience in Hawaii. Like, like you were just saying, you recently moved there probably around like 5 6 months ago. And now you are just I guess you could say getting adjusted to being like in this new place and building like your routine. What has that
Hmm.
experience been like as far as making that kind of transition within your adulthood and like essentially creating your own stability?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The first thing I want to say is I finally, I guess my indicators for feeling a little bit more settled now is I can navigate most of the roads here without needing my GPS. And we've started to build up our social circle, to the point where we have friends that can pick us up at the airport. So that, has just been like a really nice feeling in terms of like how we've been getting settled here. And so, in terms of like integrating here, it feels like it's a completely different country living in Hawaii sometimes. And in some really good ways. The culture here, it's really rich, it's really family oriented. And we I've really have started to learn a little bit more about, the aloha lifestyle. And that means you treat everyone with aloha, which means with love and respect and care, just like they would be your own family. And, that is just, I think in Indian culture, it's something that I've definitely been raised with and it's ingrained into me. And that has just really been, it has sort of like expedited my integration, I guess, here into Hawaii. And so, just a couple of examples of that is just being naturally compassionate with people, right? Like with people that you haven't even met before. People here are just more than willing to kind of help you at the drop of a dime. I mean, whether it's folks that you see on the road, people at work. There's just like this one moment when we had first moved here with my wife. It was really chaotic, and we were buying furniture, trying to pick up a U-Haul truck, and we went to Costco and we saw this really nice couch that we wanted, and I just remember, we were pulling up the U-Haul truck, and I was getting ready to load the couches into the truck, and these two guys come up to me and they're like, "Hey, man, like, do you need some help loading this in?" And it's two guys I've never met or seen before,
Hmm.
and just I was like, "Wow, I've never experienced this," and that's just a really kind of specific example of this lifestyle. And I think that the more that you sort of exhibit that kind of behavior, like just the easier it is to feel at home and just to integrate.
Yeah.
Um, and it's definitely come with its challenges too. I mean, just being in a new just part of the world. I mean, honestly, it's a small piece of land out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and I think it's sometimes hard to think about like where in the world is it that I am. And what kind of difference am I helping to make, and what can I do here? So, um, beyond that, it, we've really had to kind of keep an open mind about things. Like I said, my culture, at least socially, was really kind of rooted in what Seattle is, and so it's just a different kind of night and day culture shock, I think, if you will, to the system. But it, in a in a refreshing way, it kind of felt like I got back to my own roots, where I can just be a little bit more me here. If that
Y-
makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. And I really resonated with like, and I'm gonna articulate it as kind of like the priorities of settlement, right? Like you mentioned, um, two of the main things that you were able to do is one, build friends, have a community in the sense of, which is a big deal in the sense of having friends that you know you can count on to pick you up from the airport. I don't think
Hmm.
we talk about that enough, where we have these relationships with people, but like, can you count on this person to help you like move into a new apartment, or pick you up from the airport, or like even simply just even help you run an errand if like you're in such a big tight bind, all these different
Hmm.
levels of friendship, and like um being able to get to that point to where you have like that kind of familiarity or that kind of comfortability within an area. And then I heard you mention like just being familiar with the place in the sense of like knowing where you're going without the GPS, which I think is a big deal in itself too. Like I know for me, like when I first moved out to Seattle, that was like one of the most challenging things. Like, and something
Right.
that I kind of even struggle with now. Like I know how to get to certain places without my GPS, but like I don't feel like I'm truly at home until like I know the back roads, and like really know the back roads to where if I wanted to get somewhere in 30 minutes, I know a way that will help me get to that place.
Definitely. Definitely. And those are like the small things that make a place feel like home. And my wife and I, we check in a lot. We reflect with each other, and it's just kind of funny that those are like the two things that bubble to the top in terms of, wow, we actually feel like we're in a sense at home here, right? We know that it's not going to be forever out here, and it's a great experience, but it's those little things that just kind of all add up that just create this, awesome, wonderful experience.
Yeah, for sure. So like I guess like to kind of make a little bit of a pivot here, I'm curious around like what are those kind of same priorities for yourself, whether it's like the personal in the sense of self, or even like the personal in the sense of professionally, like what those
Hmm.
priorities are for you. Because I heard you mention a little bit earlier talking about the differences that you can make like in that world, and like being in this kind of new environment, I'm curious around what are like some of those priorities that you have for yourself, that you want to
Hmm.
explore in this period that you're in.
Right. Right. So there's been a couple, the first thing, and I think, and it's kind of ironic, but the further that I moved out, I mean, we're about 2,700 miles flight time, or flight distance from Seattle. And, one of the things is like, wow, I think I really took how close I was in proximity to not only my parents and my brother and my extended family for granted, but it just, reinforced the fact that, hey, I am on an island, and I need to make sure that I am keeping up with like communication with them, right? Because they were there from the start with me, and just it just reinforced the fact that, wow, I really need to step up to make sure that I am keeping in communications with the people that I love most. And it's been good because I feel like I call my family, almost either every day or every other day, especially my mom and my dad, and my extended family too. I try to just keep in touch with them a little bit more, let them know when I'm back. And so it's been kind of like, you don't really know what you have until, in this case, you move further away from it, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's just been trying to stay in contact with them. So it's definitely one priority that I'm just kind of ongoing, consistently doing. Another one is, when I moved here, I I was really fortunate to be part of an awesome team. So my current employer is with the Hawaii Permanente Medical Group, and they basically staff all the physicians and providers for the Kaiser region here in Hawaii. So all of Kaiser, we supply our physicians and providers to. And so I was just so incredibly fortunate to be paired with this manager who I report to, and he's honestly like a friend at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
him and I have very kind of similar approaches and thinking styles, and we just clicked, And we were actually, it's kind of funny because when I came into the organization, I didn't know that he was really new as well. So he actually started a week before me,
Oh wow.
and I said, okay. Um, so we're really the only two here, and it kind of felt like a startup. How do we start up this team in the organization so that we can just start providing value as soon as possible? And anyway, he said a couple of things to me that just really like struck me, and I got very reflective on it. And I shared a lot of my experiences from my previous employer at Seattle Children's, and I was doing more of the continuous improvement consulting and innovation work, which is what I wanted to bring to Hawaii Permanente. And so when I was talking to him about these plans and ideas and just sort of like what I've learned and the challenges, he was like, wow, that's pretty unique and something I think a lot of people could benefit from. And he kind of just left it at that, and it really inspired me to start thinking about, oh, I finally feel like I'm at this point now where I have value to offer in the form of teaching and coaching and consulting others. And so I have been for the past couple of months trying to build up a web page that is focused on sharing those learnings that I've had to help benefit others. And so, my wife, obviously, she is just so great with words, and just, she is my, I call her my unofficial editor in chief, and she actually helped me come up with the name Millennial in Chief. So that's the name of the webpage. And I just thought it spoke so perfectly to who we are as a generation, and then also how to be that leader, and how to really drive people towards big results. And so I, in the last couple of months have just been really reflective, and it's kind of forced me to, sit down and think through what are all of these things that I've learned and been challenged with, and, how can I share that with the folks who are in these roles now or are aspiring to be. And I feel like just sharing learnings and reading books and just socializing with people on those topics, that's how I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's benefited me. And I just feel like I'm at this point now where I can finally give back. And so another one of my priorities has been kind of launching that off the ground, and yeah, like I said, starting to share with the world. um and so the other priority too is just really being intentional about, and just remembering like why we moved to Hawaii, right? We moved here to get a new experience, to really kind of enrich ourselves with the culture that's here, um to really kind of like learn about a new place. And that doesn't just mean see what the new popular restaurants are or the bars are, but really kind of get in tune with like, let's let's be local and kind of experience a new culture. And so as part of that too, the priority has really been making sure that we meet a lot of local people, we network with them. I've started to just do a little bit of volunteering work, and my wife has too. And it looks so different here in Hawaii, in terms of volunteering. It just, you really feel like you're getting connected with the land and the people and just the culture. And it's just been pretty transformational, honestly. It's nothing like I've experienced before. And so the priority is to keep, figuring out ways to continue doing that and being a part of that work.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. And I love that. I love like, you know, it sounds like with this move to Hawaii, like as we kind of talked about earlier, it's a different type of move. It was a move that started because, as you were saying beforehand, your wife got the opportunity to get that position in Hawaii, and so that kind of uprooted like you from um, the community, the job, the whatever
Hmm.
that you were used to, and now you're really. It sounds beautiful because it's just like not only is like your marriage new in the sense that like you recently got married, but like also you get to explore a new place with that person that you decided to spend the rest of your life with, and like the intentionality that you're putting not only into like your family, your career, but then also like um, the place that you call home, right? Like I don't.
Hmm.
Do
Hmm.
you feel like you would have this same type of perspective if you didn't have this kind of, for lack of a better term, change of pace?
I don't know if I would. I can't say, but I think that it's just been it's been a new experience. And again, I'm all about kind of understanding and learning what the new opportunities and experiences are, and intentionally deciding which ones that I want to go after. um and something that you had said too is just around the experiences of moving here with my now wife. I would say it's just like there's kind of two sides to every coin, right? But both are equally valuable. So on one side, we've had this amazing positive experience, to be able to move over here. Like I said, really kind of learn new routines and just really enrich ourselves with the culture here. I mean, the other side of it too is it was challenging, right? I mean, there was a ton of emotion about me wanting to uproot and kind of weighing the pros and cons of it. And it wasn't by any means easy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think with that too, it just from a relationship standpoint too, if you're able to have a partner that you can have those honest and transparent conversations with and just be really vulnerable, and a lot of them are pretty emotional. I mean, our relationship, I think, as of this move has just flourished even more. I think we've really kind of understood and kind of have just kind of we've been put in a unique situation, and both of us have risen to the challenge together to work through and overcome it. And so I just wanted to call it out because a lot of friends and family are like, oh yeah, you're in Hawaii, it must be great. And yeah, it is. The payoff is always great, but the journey always has some bumps and challenges in the road. But I guess the way that my wife and I think about it too, and we reflect back on it and we talk about, wow, we were able to accomplish so much just together, and how do we want to how do we want to continue to make that part of our relationship? And we're starting to get to the point in our lives now of thinking about children, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how do we want to start to instill some of those values that we're learning into them as well too? So it's just it's overall just been really transformational, and in a way that I could not have predicted 8 months ago. Had no idea. But I think this change of pace though has just, again, it's been transformational. It's changed a lot, in my personal approaches for the better, and just enriched our relationship.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like it. And I'm curious because, like, you mentioned earlier to make a little bit of a pivot where you were talking about your career and like your previous experience and like continuous improvement and like how you wanted to leverage that into like your new role. I'm
Hmm.
curious around what that kind of transformation looked like, if you will, because um, like if you can reflect back on like the journey that you took to get to the point that you're at right now, right? I'm sure, you
Hmm.
know, it was a lot of grinding, a lot of hard work. Like how did you make that kind of shift towards saying like I'm still going to like do my job in the sense of what I do on a day-to-day basis because like, you know, that's my job, but I also want to add on to it a little bit more in the sense of building my own little business and like how I
Hmm.
can expand on that using the experiences that I've had. Like how how did that kind of conversation go with like your new boss, or like was this something that you keep separate?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I guess, to kind of answer this, it takes a little bit of going back, I guess, through my journey too, even starting from college. And so, real quick here, I was in undergrad, and as every undergrad does, they probably struggle at least once or twice. In my case, I think it was like 3 or 4 times to figure out like what is it that I want to do. And so I remember I, got into finance. I think I declared that as one of my majors, and I took a couple of classes in it, and I heard it was pretty lucrative and whatnot, but I honestly just did not enjoy it for whatever reasons, right? And so I remember, with my roommate, we actually like took a kind of a soul searching walk, if you will, because he was struggling with the same thing, and we really thought about like what, we're kind of nervous. We should be figuring this out. What do we do? And the first thing is just kind of reassured ourselves that we would figure it out. But I found this really cool major in college that I think just really spoke to me. And so it was a mix of, I think my personalities, honestly, as I'm like talking out loud about this now, is it was a mix of business and engineering. So on the business side, really wanted to, that side appeals to me because I am social. I do like to connect with people. I do like to deliver value, and on the engineering side is very process focused. And so I was like, wow, this certain discipline mixes both um, process and relationships. And so I knew that's what I wanted to get into. And so as I started to kind of go through that program a little bit more, they had a couple of internships that you needed to complete to graduate. And I remember that I had an interning position at at a heavy construction manufacturing company. And so when I got in there, I for 3 months was doing some interning grunt work, if you will, and still kind of learning about what does life look like, in a professional setting. And all the work that I was doing that summer was really helpful. It's not what I wanted to do. And so actually at the last week of that internship, I heard about something called a Kaizen event that was being hosted at the company. And so, for those of you that don't know, Kaizen is just a Japanese word that means continuous improvement. So it was this continuous improvement workshop that was designed to better a process. And so I I got really intrigued, and I was like, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. That sounds really cool. And they're like, yeah, it's unfortunately after your internship, so we wouldn't be able to, like compensate you, which I mean, compensating an intern like back in the day was just unheard of. So that was a cool experience in itself. But
Yeah.
anyway, I was like, hey, I'll be on this event for free. Like, you don't have to pay me. I just want to learn and see what this is all about. And so, that week was really focused on improving a manufacturing process, and you do it with the help of people who are actually doing the job. It's not some boardroom meeting, but you're actually on the ground on the manufacturing line
Hmm.
with the people doing the work, guiding them and leading them to create a better process. And then that for me was just like, yep, this is it. In whatever shape or form this is what I want to do. And so, that kind of evolved into me accepting a position at that same company the following year as a lean leader, doing a lot of manufacturing workshop improvements. And so, I struggled a little bit too, because it was, okay, we're doing some great work, and I really like this approach, and I love the empowerment that it does, and I love learning how to lead people through this change that is difficult. But I wonder if there's a different sort of industry that I could apply this to, because at the end of the day, we're doing all of this work to get another unit out of the door, getting
Mm-hmm.
another manufacturing unit out of the door. And so I connected with somebody at Seattle Children's. Actually, I was hosting a conference at that manufacturing company, and I had one of the senior directors of supply chain at Seattle Children's attend, and him and I just connected instantly, and on both like personal and professional levels. And he was telling me a little bit more about the work that he does, and like, oh, we've got this continuous improvement consulting group that does this work just in a healthcare setting. And my mom has been in healthcare like for the longest time, ever since that I can remember. And I really loved this idea of helping people. I think it's always been something that's been ingrained into me, and it was just a natural transition where he said, "Hey, if you're interested, let me know. I can make a couple of calls and see what we can do to get you in for an interview." And I was just hooked. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, wait, so I can apply this process that I love, and I'm so passionate, and at the end of the day, use it in a very humanitarian way that will help people and patients that need these help, that need this kind of help, and we can provide safer care, better care, more quality, and give them a good experience. And it was just a no-brainer. So, that's when I really kind of started my journey at Seattle Children's, doing a lot of that work. And it was just amazing. It was beyond words to be able to just be in that position where you apply this methodology that, and again, you use the help of people who are actually doing the job. I was working with a lot of MAs and nurses and doctors to just transform lives, and that was just an amazing experience. And then, this innovation team started popping up, and we started to learn the difference between improvement and innovation. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I wanted to transition to see, okay, I'm really good at process improvement. Now, what can I do to help develop products that are going to benefit our patients and families? And so I started to get promoted into that position as well too, to help start up the innovation team at Seattle Children's, which was just incredible. I mean, there were things that we were doing that was just really special. We were developing these products that would either help staff members or help them run simulations easier.
Mm-hmm.
Another arm of the team was printing 3D printing anatomy of particular patients. So that surgeons could actually practice on a body part, what the surgery would look like before they even saw that patient for the first time. It was just amazing, in terms of bettering outcomes. And so, like that was just a really great point in my life for learning about like both the process and the product side to bring value. And again, it's the passion of the work. And kind of jumping over to the Hawaii side of things, I was really intentional about continuing that experience here, right? I just didn't want to get, a job where I could feel like that I was just providing a little bit of consultation or whatnot. But,
Mm-hmm.
that set the bar, that experience set the bar for me. And so when I kind of brought that to Hawaii, currently at HPMG, I think people were just like, wow, we didn't expect like that we could do this, or that wasn't even on our radar, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just so fortunate to be able to kind of like inspire people, especially at the top level leadership, to kind of start thinking in this new way of, no, we actually can transform lives here in healthcare. And it comes down to our process improvements that we can do, and hopefully as we can start to innovate to better their lives even more.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I that resonates with me for on multiple different levels. Not only because of the fact, that's how you and I met, in the sense of you
Right,
coaching me
right.
in like process improvement and lean and things of that nature, but then also like how this journey kind of was intentional, but like the the organic nature of how whenever you have your why and you kind of stick true to that why,
Mhm.
how opportunities can flourish from it. Because what I was hearing is, right, like you started in college and you're like, I really want to do something that I'm actually interested in. And so, you
Mhm.
explored around a little bit, you found a major that was interesting to you, and got to really and truthfully engage in not necessarily um, the the financial part of it wholeheartedly, because that's important. We all have bills. We all need to make sure that we
Definitely.
um,
Definitely.
do all those things, and some of us have other priorities as well that we need to
Right.
take responsibility for.
But it's not the end all be all, right?
Exactly.
And mhm. Mhm.
Exactly, man. Like it's not the end all be all. And like you took that and you were able to build a career with it. And like, because the way I see it is, just like literally everyone else in this world, you are the only Vinay. Like there's probably a thousand, hundreds of thousands different Vinays, but the Vinay that has the exact same experiences that you have, you're one of a kind. And so being able to take those experiences and like share that, being able to communicate that narrative and package it to where it becomes a product, I think that's something that um, we all like kind of struggle with in the sense of actually doing, right. Like you mentioned, as
Mhm.
far as the intentionality that you're having towards building this kind of this build business with the millennial in chief blog, and like how
Mhm.
you're taking all of these various experiences while not at the not at necessarily the same time you're still learning, but at the same time you're still learning too, because you're like growing in your own career. And so I'm curious,
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, how you're um keeping that kind of parallel going, and like for lack of a better term, knowing your worth, and like making sure that you're selling that, building that product and selling that product as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, I think there's a couple things. I've actually found writing to be really therapeutic for me. And I bring that up just because it's not something that I had done before in the past, and I think I was just very I tended to prefer to verbalize my learnings and my sharings, and
Mm-hmm.
so just being able to write, it's a new skill that I'm developing. I don't know if I've always been the best writer for per se, which is probably, why I got into more of an engineering business background instead of linguistics and writing and whatnot. But anyway, I kind of work on it in parallel because the way that I am doing this is I I'm always kind of my perspective and my ears have just been opened up to, again, what opportunities am I hearing, like what do people need help with, right? And so I remember, earlier on, there is a really just phenomenal provider that I'm working with, and we're partnering together on a project, and she said, hey, I'm really struggling to kind of influence decisions, and to really, she has a lot of great ideas, but how does she actually communicate and facilitate that, and how does she do it in a way that's really collaborative and cooperative with folks? And so I started introducing her to this great book that I've read, and great approach called Humble Inquiry, which is really
Mm-hmm.
based on you know, asking questions with the intent to learn, so that one, you're building relationships with folks and being vulnerable and showing interest in what they have to say, and also using those questions to help guide them to a problem that they're trying to solve. And so I think you and I actually in the past have kind of worked on that specific, building that specific skill set, which, I mean, you're honestly like really good at, like you can even just tell it in these questions that you're asking now, just to learn and understand. But it's I guess, to answer your question, what I'm doing is I'm keeping my ears open for opportunity that I'm hearing to support people, because I think for me, what I take for granted and what the knowledge, some of the knowledge that I have, I do take for granted, right? Because I just have been, that was typically the way that I've operated, or that's the dynamic that I've been in with different teams. And when some teams haven't been exposed to that, it's like, oh, here's an opportunity to actually learn, one, me to learn how to coach this person to develop that skill set, and then two, basically write about it, you know? And I think the writing piece of it makes me an even stronger coach and consultant, because it actually gives me like intentional time to reflect on what it is I'm trying to achieve, or help build in the skill of other people.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that that really goes really well with like what we were talking earlier as far as those three main priorities, and like that last one being that kind of remembering that why. Um, I'm
Hmm.
I'm curious around like as you're as you're entering literally this new chapter, right? You're in a new place. You're starting to get a little bit more settled in, and like you're working on all these different kind of projects personally, professionally, etc. How are you maintaining and remembering that why? Is it like as you were kind of saying a little bit earlier, as far as keeping your eyes and ears open to hear around those moments of opportunities, not only as a way to like, oh, I can build my business from this, but also giving
Hmm.
back. Like it sounds like to me, part of the reason for why you do what you do is not only because it's something that you're interested in, but you just genuinely like you're a giving person. You genuinely want the best for people, and so
Right.
if you have the skill set or the knowledge to be able to share it, you want to be able to have multiple different ways of relaying that message, whether it's through a book, whether it's through the blog, whether it's through what have you. Um, how do you keep that why constant?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great question. And, I always try to just, I think ingrained in me is just being very humanitarian and making sure that people's lives are made easier, in any kind of shape or form. I mean, life, especially since COVID in the last couple of years, it's just been made so much harder. And um, I feel like some of these learnings that I've gotten and skills that I've developed over the years can help make that a little bit easier, and I don't do it, per se for like the gratitude that gets expressed from other people, but I know it's the right thing to do. And I think it falls a lot like on my upbringing, right? We were always taught you should leave things better than the way that you found it, right? You should always
Yeah.
be helping people. It just kind of comes back to that, where it's just a natural part of my personality. And, I think the icing on the top is when people that I'm partnering and collaborating with actually put it in perspective for me, to let me know like the impact that this work is having. So again, I'll bring up that provider that I'm working with again. She just said something that kind of stopped me in my tracks, and just got me to like, I wouldn't say get emotional, but I mean there was a little bit of emotion there. And this project that we're working on together, she was like, "You are literally changing people's lives with this." You know, people are burnt out, people are tired. This is going to help people be less tired and less burnt out, and they're going to be able to better care for the people that they're providing for. And I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I just had to stop and think about for a second, that the impact of this work, it's we always got to think about who it's impacting, right? And I'm just really glad that she brought that up, because it's so inspirational to be able to hear that. I mean, I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed to be in this position where I can help people on different, strategic priorities or projects or just initiatives or just, buckets of work that can have this kind of impact on people. I think another thing too is, as I've been working with this, I know I keep bringing up this one particular person, but it's just so fresh in my mind right now. And, she was like, this is honestly helping me to have a better quality of life. Like I
Mm,
feel better at
yeah.
work. because of what you're teaching me, and just how you're coaching me and how you're actually just letting me be vulnerable without judgment. And it's just, these are the skills and honestly just like the personality traits that I feel like come really natural to me. Again, because of my upbringing, I'm gonna like just give a huge shout out to my mom and dad for really kind of helping with that. And it it just reinforces the why all the time. It's like, okay, I mean, this is the work that we have to do. It's challenging. It's so challenging. It's so hard to do, but I mean, again, in the moment, it's really hard. But when you look back on it, a month later, a year later, it's 100% the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and it keeps me going.
Yeah. No, that's beautifully said, man. I I really appreciate this because it's just like, from our whole entire conversation, what I'm hearing is it's just like, um, when it comes to that why, it's like our own individual whys are kind of ingrained into us, like whether it's how we were reared, whether it's experiences that we've had, but innately, like, when we take that time to reflect and understand exactly what is our priorities, what exactly is our why, and create a path that, always goes in the direction towards that. It's kind of like any kind of organization, right? Like, whenever,
Hmm.
an
Hmm.
organization has to make a decision, they does it align with the mission, vision, and goals? If it doesn't
Hmm.
align with those three things, then it's like, is it really worth our time to help in that kind of pursuit
Right.
towards that?
Do we do it right?
Yeah. Oh, that I love it, man. I really appreciate, just this whole conversation and you taking out the time to just sit down and talk with me for a little bit. Um, I want to go through some lightning questions that I do on every show, and then I'll let you get back to the rest of your day. How does that sound?
All right, cool, man. Let's do it.
All right, man. So first off, what is, your favorite relaxation or self care activity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I've been doing a lot of meditation lately.
Mm,
And it just has been helping me to focus more and zone out less. And honestly, it, I've kind of started to understand now, like what kind of a break it gives to your body. Like the metaphor that I use is, you know, on a physical level, imagine running on a treadmill for 24 hours a day, right?
mm-hmm.
um, that's what our brains are doing. It's always working, it's always going. And just like on a physical level, you're going to get really tired if you're just constantly running. And so I have found, just some breaks of meditation, to really kind of allow me to just get off the treadmill for a little while and catch my breath. And so it's something I've been trying to adopt a little bit more and more every day, either through, using different apps or just again writing, right? You kind of get in that flow state, which has just been awesome and just really good for my mental health. Um, I've also been doing a lot more physical activity. So as you know, Hawaii pretty much has one season, all year round.
Yeah.
um, and so it's been great because, like I've been able to do a lot more, like just connect with the water a lot more. So I've been doing a lot of swimming. We've taken up snorkeling, going to the beach, and just reading. And hopefully in a couple of months we're going to start taking up surfing. But water's it's my element, and I'm calmest and clearest, I think, when I'm around it. So.
Yeah, man, I love that. And I'm looking forward to this one because I know you're a well-read man. What's your best book recommendation?
So I've got two that are coming to top of mind. I'll go through them real quick here, but the first one is, I think you and I actually talked about it. It's called Range,
Mm-hmm.
and I love this book because it really is people based, and it teaches you how you know you, one's own unique experiences can play a major role in solving problems, and being a better person. So there's a couple of examples that I'll pull out from the book. where we talk about Roger Federer. I think he's a Wimbledon tennis champion, and he started playing tennis really really late. For kind of star athletes, I think he started at around like 13 or 14 years old, and most consider like on the opposite end of it, like Tiger Woods, for example, phenomenal golfer, and he picked up a golf club before he could even start walking.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a couple examples I really like in this book where they talk about Roger Federer, and it's like, wow, how did you become so good to be a world champion at tennis like so late in the game, if you will? And he said, I was exposed to a lot of different activities when I was growing up. And they're like, well, you have really fancy footwork, like you can move on the court. How do you do that? And you have such good, foot-eye coordination. And he's like, well, when I was growing up, my parents enrolled me in dance classes. So that's where I got to learn those skills. And he applies it, to his sport that he's playing. And so I just thought, like, wow, what a cool way to kind of think about how your skills that you're continuously learning now in the present can have some sort of an impact on the future if you know how to apply them properly. And so there's lots of other examples. I can keep talking about this book. It's one of my favorites. But, for folks that just need some inspiration on like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's too late for me to start something new or learn something new or solve a new problem, read this book. It will totally it's a paradigm shift. The other one that I'll talk about just really quickly here, oh my gosh, it's been so good, is Sapiens, and it's a brief history through humankind. And it talks about how folks are from the beginning of time, what different species of people there were, and how we kind of landed into one Homo sapien race, and then how culture and agricultural revolution and whatnot has just influenced a lot of where we are now. And talks also about based off the decisions that we're making now, like the next 100 years can look really really different. And so that one is just a really thought-provoking book that it's really hard to put down. So those are my two top recommendations, is Range and Sapiens.
All right, thank you for that, man. Really appreciate that. I must say, like for that Range book, it definitely was something that was even like transformative for myself, just to think about like the benefits of being multidisciplinary, right? Like
Right.
we say, okay, I really want to be this person, and so I'm gonna do every single thing to like put myself on that track. But really, it's like there's so many different kinds of twists and turns that can still lead you to that same point, and like if not get you to that point better because of the vast different perspectives that you have on that one thing. I love it.
Right. Absolutely. It opens up the perspective, and it gets you out of the tunnel vision, and it was just a mind-blowing book for me. I think, I've read it twice now and probably going to read it again in the near future, but it's just a constant reminder of, be open to learning new things that aren't just within your discipline. And there's a way that all of it melds together.
Yep, for sure.
you know?
Totally agree. Totally agree. And then lastly, one person you want to thank for your journey thus far.
Yeah, that one's a hard one. To be honest, I can't. It's really hard to narrow it down to just one person because there's so many people who have been a huge inspiration for me. And honestly, part of my lifelong course corrections, if you will, it just seems like the perfect people pop up into my life at the right time to just help push me further. I if I'm trying to get it down to just I can't get it down to one person. I can get it down to like maybe a couple, but I just parents, family, and my wife. My parents, again, I think I am who I am, and I have the personality and the passion that I have because of them, right? That upbringing it set the foundation, honestly, for me, and just how I think and what I'm passionate about. And so I have them just to thank like 100-fold for it. And then, my wife too. It's just she's the person that I can be my most vulnerable with, and she's also one of the most supportive and caring people. I have just wild ideas, and I think we're both really adventurous and experiential, and we just we kind of like play that energy off of each other and kind of push each other to new limits. So that those are the two, or kind of, I guess, sets of people that are coming to mind right now, but many others have just been a huge inspirational part of my journey.
Yeah, totally understand that. Well, man, I really appreciate you for being on the show today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you, sir. It's awesome to catch up and just yeah, just really go through this. Really proud of all the work that you're doing, and yeah, just good luck with everything.
All right, thank you, sir. This has been another episode of Don't Be Coy with Uncle Lew. As always, I'd like to thank this episode's guest for a great conversation, as well as thank you, the listener, for joining in. Whether you're a first-time listener or a regular, I always appreciate your support. If you like today's episode and ever want to listen to more, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. And to join our community and access future bonus content, be sure to visit dbkpodcast.com.